have what I think is the most depressing financial stat I have ever read, and it is not for the reason that you think. So, stat is this: boomers, baby boomers, are the wealthiest generation who has ever lived, which sounds like a great thing. So, why is it a depressing statistic? Let's go ahead and break it down. This is a very interesting conversation that I think is suited more for YouTube than it is for Instagram. I did talk very briefly about this on Instagram, but I only get but a minute or so. Here, where you got my full attention, we can talk for as long as we need to. But I do want to bring out three major points about this conversation because it's extremely important about an upcoming project that your boy is working on. There's also some construction outside, so if you hear it, you hear it. Sorry. Okay, I don't control what they're doing out there in the streets. All right, but the first thing is this. They are set to be, or they are right now, the greatest generation when it comes to building wealth. They are the wealthiest generation who has ever lived at this point in time. However, millennials, their kids, that is a fact, okay? My parents are boomers, and if you are a millennial, your parents are likely boomers. That's just how it is, okay? And it's not every single parent out there, right? But generally speaking, the next statistic after that is millennials, for the first time in history, are not going to be better off than their parents. The first time in American history. Now, most people will tell you in every culture, but especially again, since the first time in American history, you are setting up your kids to be better off. That is what you do. You send them off to college, you give them some money, you raise them right, blah, 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 blah. Right? Well, that is not the case. And there are three primary reasons as to why that has occurred in my view. And I would love to hear your thoughts as well. So I'm going to give you a very quick rundown as to why I think that has occurred. And I'm going to bring some receipts to the table as well. So first one, what I see as to why millennials have not built the exact same wealth as their parents' generation or as boomers have. And these are systemic things, okay? Because I know, there's somebody out there, well, if millennials worked hard and you didn't buy pizza and you know, y'all just not working hard enough. Oh, you wish that were the case. It is not exactly that. A lot of this stems first with the Great Recession, something millennials did not cause. That's just a fact. I was in college, okay? It wasn't me. Okay, but it starts with the 2008 recession. Why was this a big thing? Well, number one, stock market was down, but also the housing market was down. Now, again, millennials were not in charge of the government, not in charge of the housing market, not in charge of none of that stuff at that point in time. And for context, millennials are in their 30s, 40s right now. So none of that 20-year-old stuff. Okay, just to give you some context. Okay, your boy is almost 35. Anyway, at that point in time, that crashed the housing market. And if you were graduating college at that point in time, you graduated directly into a recession. It was very difficult for you to get a job. But what happened, and was probably the worst thing at the time, is we stopped as a country building homes. And a lot of those manufacturers, the people who were building homes, went completely out of business, which set us up for where we are today, where we are in a housing deficit. That messes up the supply and demand when it comes to building houses today. That is why today in 2024, the median cost for a house is $430,000. $430,000. For context, in 1995, and we're adjusting for today's prices, in 1995, the median house price was $114,000. For many of our parents, not every parent, but for many of our parents, $114,000 for a house, boy, that's cheap. That's affordable. Now, put it this way, and these are all adjusted for today's numbers. Now, in 1995, you only needed a salary of $64,000 to afford a middle-of-the-road median house. $64,000 is what you would need in today's numbers. A $64,000 job could have bought you a house, okay? Today in 2024, you would need $104,000 to buy a basic middle-of-the-road house today. Everybody's not making $104,000. In fact, the median salary today is $59,000. So not only on a median salary, because you not afford $100,000 home, you can't afford a home in 95 today. You can't think about that. With today's numbers, you could not afford a 1995 home, and you darn sure cannot afford a 2024 home. That by itself is wild. That by itself is absolutely crazy when you start to think about it and how those numbers come up. Now, how do you calculate those numbers? There are a lot of things that go into it. We can do a whole mortgage segment, but it really comes down to the rule of 28 and how much of your income, your monthly income, is going to the mortgage and things like that. But that is what we are looking at. So the fact that we did not build homes messes up the supply and demand. You reduce the supply by not building, and you stop building for several years in a row, then you mess up the supply and demand. But boomers were set up to have a plethora of inexpensive homes to have because of World War II. When people got back, the GI Bill, all that type of stuff, they were building like crazy because they were government subsidized. And by the time they grew up, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there were plenty of homes out there for them to buy and do all that type of stuff. 2008 happened, we stopped building. That was it, okay? And then you have the NIMBYs, not my backyard. I have been in these meetings myself. You may have run into these meetings as well, where local homeowners associations and stuff, mostly boomers, because those are the people who could afford houses when they were cheap, will gather together and say, no, we don't want to build apartment buildings. We don't want to build new communities. We don't want to build anything because that hurts the value of my home. That does what? No new homes means the value of my own house goes up. So that is one, because if you can't buy a home, these are things that help to increase your net worth. Should a house be an investment? Whole different conversation. We can talk whether or not that is a good investment or not. Did a whole video on that. So that's just one part of this conversation. Now you know why we had to talk about it on YouTube. The next thing is jobs. So the job thing is very, very interesting. It's the one thing I don't think enough people are talking about when it comes to why millennials aren't better off than their parents, or at least baby boomers, and how much wealth that they control. So for example, going back to 1989 when your boy was born, it's a great year in 1989, is this. Okay, in 1989, baby boomers controlled 20% of the wealth in the United States. Millennials only control 5%. How do you generate wealth? Well, the first part is getting a job. You need income to then buy and invest. Now, part of controlling that wealth is home ownership, because again, if you own that major asset and that asset goes up, you just happen to control a lot of it, right? So if I own a home that's $400,000, it's a lot of wealth, right? Again, investment or not, a good investment or not, all type of stuff, conversation for a different day. But that is a lot of wealth for me to own and control. Well, if I can't do that, that's out of the question, right? That's out of the equation altogether. But on the job piece of this, number one, again, you go through 2008, you graduating into a situation where the job market just isn't there. Okay, or you are underemployed, where now you have a college degree and now you have to take a waiter job. Now you have a college degree and now you're a substitute teacher or something like that. We need teachers, we need even substitute teachers. However, if you paid $60,000 or $70,000 for that college degree and now you're only on a part-time job, that math does not add up for you, does it? And again, that was a recession that you did not engineer, and that's not something that you asked for, right? So you do all that, but here is the major point here. In 1990, only 10% of the entire adult population was working 55 and up. Okay, think about that. In 1990, again, millennials were not working. We were not old enough. I was 1 year old. Okay, 1 year old to be grammatically correct. So at that time, only 10% of the working population was 55 and up. Today, it is 20%. What that means is people like myself and millennials in general are still competing with boomers in the job market. That means they have not moved out of the way. So these senior positions, the positions that pay more, are still occupied, which means that millennials cannot move up, which means the people behind us, Gen Z, can't move into our positions, and everybody's kind of stuck in this pattern. So if I can't get a raise because you are still in that seat, or someone in front of me is still in that seat, then we're still kind of in this holding pattern, meaning I can't get, or this person, whoever this person is, can I get that $100,000 job to then go afford the home that is out there, because I'm still stuck in this middle management position or even this entry level position. And then again, if I can't move up, then the person behind me is still stuck working at McDonald's or wherever, even though they're qualified to have the job that I have. You can look at, I think, a situation we could all agree on and get. Congress right now is far too old, right? We can get into the ages of a whole bunch of other people, right? But they're far older than the American population. There are a lot of people way younger and perhaps more qualified, but they just won't move out the way. They just won't move, right? There are other people who are, again, mostly well qualified, that if you just, shift it over, somebody else could get up in that spot and then run it in a better way, perhaps, right? Or just run it. Whether it's better or not, conversation for a different day. But that is kind of what we're seeing in the workforce as well. So whether it's CEOs, whether it is senior manager of whatever, that is something that is happening. Now, right now, again, that 20%, so that's an additional 10% of what it was from 1990, when you extrapolate, right, when you stretch this out over an entire economy, these are millions of jobs. And if we are talking C-suite or even just, again, middle management or senior management, sometimes these are 80, 90, 150, 160 or $70,000 jobs. That's a lot of money left on the table that could have gone down to a different generation. And again, as they move out and millennials move up, then that helps the generation behind them start to accumulate wealth a lot faster and a lot better than the people before them. But if they are holding those seats, that money does not trickle down to the next generation, which again, for the first time in American history, has not occurred, which says that this is an anomaly. Something different is happening, or has happened rather. The next thing is college costs. Now, I think this is the one that gets the most attention. As we know, in 1980, college tuition was $12,000. You could have worked a minimum wage job and paid for your college, which is wild to think about, because today college tuition is like $40,000, which is crazy. You would need to work years at a minimum wage job. Now, again, at the time right now, on a national level, who, or what generation rather, controls what the minimum wage is? The answer is not millennials, and it certainly isn't Gen Z. You come up with whatever conclusion that you want, okay? Now, so that's, you can't put that on millennials at all, but also they have said it, they have not changed it. That's up to them. Now, it is changing on the state level depending on where you are, but also it was not millennials who set what those prices were, and it's also not millennials who set the requirements for certain jobs to require a college degree, which did happen. Now, today, thankfully, some companies and places are taking those away. Trade school and trade jobs are becoming more popular, which is great, because there should be more pathways where you don't absolutely have to go to college to get a good, decent paying job. But still, the facts are the facts. You still need, right, based on where the prices of houses are today, you gotta get as close to that $100,000 mark as possible if you plan on buying a median price house. That's not the average, right? The average could swing in either direction, but those are the things. The cost of housing today, the cost of college, which is one thing, the only thing really that you can mark off of the list if you choose, but that also skews the numbers as well. And then again, the cost of housing that we had brought up. Now, all that stuff sounds terrible. Okay, it does, which is why it's the most depressing. That's why it's the title of the video. So what do we do? How can we get around this? Well, there are a few things. Again, while I'm working on a special project. So if you want to stay tuned to what that project is, it's why you want to hit the subscribe button now. I also have an email list, while as you're working on this special project, you want to stay tuned. So make sure you're on the email list as well as subscribing. But you've got to think outside of the box, Okay, you've got to be able to think outside of the box, and you've got to play offense. When I say play offense, that is whether it's playing the side hustle game, whether it is skipping jobs, meaning every 2 to 3 years, going from job A to job B. Some studies have shown that you can increase your salary anywhere between 8 to 10% per job jump. That might have to work for you. Starting your own business like I have may have to work for you as well. And again, investing can also be a way to amplify your wealth too, which is what we focus on here. So I am a resource for you. I want to be a resource for you. And people in the comments will tell you whether it's NRG, CEG, for those who are, this is the first time you've ever watched these videos, these are ticker symbols of stocks that have done quite well just this year, okay? And while not every single stock is perfect and every single stock goes up, they don't, right? But we're right more often than not. But that is just some of the things that we can do to kind of change the system in our favor, right? Things are different. We've got to adapt to the situation and the economy and the climate that we are in. That is our job, is to, the map is the map. Right? We've got to learn how to navigate. If you want to learn more about how to invest and how to navigate, or even how to invest your first $1,000, this is the video that you want to watch next.